I understand that you are the backbone and infrastructure of all that operates at our institution. Mm-hmm. And because you do it so well, you become invisible.
Yeah. You're listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro-AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in again to the AV-IT Amplifier. If it is Wednesday, you know your feed is refreshed with new content, and today is no exception. And listeners, I have to tell you, you are going to hear that I am on my best behavior today for a very important reason. That is, today's guest is my boss's boss's boss. So we're going to be minding our P's and Q's. Dr. Rhine, thank you for being with us today. Would you mind introducing to the audience who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you for having me here, Ryan. My name is Lisa Rhine. I'm the president of Yavapai College. I'm finishing my 6th year here and pleased to be here to talk about technology.
Cool. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. I know the life of a college president is ironically probably busier than that of those of us in technology. So I appreciate you taking the time to do it. I want to talk a little bit about at some point the kind of the space we're in and why we have a cool place to do this and how that started and your vision for it. But the number one question that always comes up when people talk about higher ups in education and that sort of thing is, why on earth would you choose to take your life's work effort and put it towards what it means to manage an entire college and take on that responsibility?
Why would I do that?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I don't think anyone grows up thinking, I'm going to be a college president someday. That it just kind of happens organically, and that's how it was for me. I had higher up individuals that I had worked for who recognized something in me and encouraged me to pursue that. I dipped my toe into that, going into leadership programs and presidential development programs. And initially I said, nah, the way to the seat, too much.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. And then another person recognized that. And again, we had that conversation and finally participated in the Aspen Institute and realized that I needed to do it. I needed to do it for the good of students.
That's awesome. So there's like kind of that reluctance. You mentioned the weight of the seat,
yes.
Right? So what does the weight of the seat mean?
Yeah. So an interesting thing about being a president is that you're always the president. 24/7, 100% of the time. And whether you're on vacation or at a grocery store or at the college, you're the president. And you also carry the yoke of the institution with you 100% of the time, 24/7. And so that's what I mean by the weight of the seat. Because everything that I do, every interaction, every behavior is there and reflects on the institution as well as myself. So you have to hold yourself to a higher standard in terms of your behavior and your interaction. You have to have very thick skin, but also a very strong moral compass, because you need to know what's right and do what's right, regardless of the critique that is inevitable. And so that's what I mean by the weight of the seat, the yoke of the institution that you carry with you as a person.
The experience sounds a lot like that of being a public official. I mean, it really is a public official. While in theory it is a contract employee position and you have a job and you whatever, it is the acknowledgement that I am the face of. You're taking on. Yavapai College and Lisa Rhine mean the same thing, and that's a lot.
They're inseparable,
Yeah.
really, and I don't think people realize that. And so that's a challenge of the position, but it's also just a blessing and such an opportunity, and super grateful for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't know what our computer was doing, but it's fine. Sorry, I get so easily distracted. It's the worst. It doesn't matter. So when you, one last question down that road, which is, when it comes to being a college president, what do you think is the most, or the least understood part of it? What's the assumption that everybody has about that job that just kind of isn't true?
That you sit up in a corner office and kind of direct the organization. It's not like that at all. Daily, I would say, dealing with the crisis of the day. There's always an unexpected something, either with personnel or student conduct or a community issue or some challenge. Also, I think what was surprising for me is I didn't understand the extent to which I would be working with a board and the board relations and the amount of time that I expected to do that.
Yeah.
I think I came in thinking 10, 15% of my time. It's clearly like 35 to 40% of my time, the board relations piece.
So you got to manage up just like the rest of us.
That's exactly right.
I mean, don't tell me, you don't know how much time I spend trying to keep Clint in line. You have no idea. I'm just kidding. But like, that is, instead of having one boss, technically, right, you have one boss by the vote of 5 people, but it's 5 different people. So
5 personalities to manage and to feed and nurture and develop those relationships is critical to the success of the president.
So just for those of us in tech, it's just like it was in I'm the worst with the movie about Office Space, right? I have 5 bosses, so when something goes awry, I got 5 people telling me that it. Well, thank you for doing that on our behalf.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
and keeping us in a place of freedom to continue to move forward, and I appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk technology.
Okay.
And and to start kind of wide, when you've been in education for a while, and everyone in education now, right? Like the role that technology, or even what technology means, even what we're talking about when we talk about technology, is so different than, in higher education than it was before. So when you think about both in higher education, but for Yavapai College, for, say the remainder of the time you are going to be here, at a high level, what do you need technology to do to make YC successful?
Wow, that's a great question. So to your point of how technology has changed over time, I mean, this is my 35th year in higher education, and I've worked at 3 universities, 3 community colleges, and technology was really in its infancy when I started in higher education. I didn't even have a computer on my desk. And I worked in student services, and if I needed access to a student record, I had to walk down to the registrar's office and stand in line with the students to get up to the front of the line and ask for a file that was paper, write my notes from it and return the file, and then eventually we had the opportunity to have a dummy terminal that was in the middle of all of the cubicles, and we could all get in and look at data, but we couldn't manipulate it or change it or anything like that. And then we got computers on our desk, eventually. But even then, there was resistance to that from some folks. No way, I'm not doing that. We used to write memos using typewriters. Yes, we did.
Well, at least we're past that sort of resistance to new technology, right?
Sure. And just to imagine, back then, I could never have imagined we would be where we are today. And just with our experience here at the college, we dipped our toe into the immersive technologies and the virtual reality piece a year ago, and just to see the explosion of immersive tech and then the integration of AI into that and what that means for knowledge and learning and content, and just all of that is just exponential every day. And so I don't know what I need in the future. I just know we need to stay on the cutting edge of learning what is going on, what's growing, what's developing, and keeping our faculty and staff in front of that. And that takes work and effort on the behalf of our faculty and staff, to their willingness to also stay in the game and just go for the ride. It really feels like technology is driving us, as opposed to us just taking technology as we might. Right.
No, I really appreciate the answer of, like, I don't necessarily know what I need, but we know we can't let it just Like, we can't let it pass us by. We can't, just like in any other thing, right? If there's a tool out there that can help our students have a better experience, learn more, learn better, or be better prepared, then how do we sit on the sideline and say, we don't want to be involved in that particular thing?
Absolutely. We know technology is going to profoundly change what we do. We just don't know how. And we've got to figure that out in daily now, daily.
Yeah,
pay
for
attention
sure.
to that. And not just occasionally think about, oh, technology. No, it's like every single day. It's learning, growing, progressing in a way that's going to change what we do every day.
Yeah. So how then, when you're, like you said, the job of a president isn't to, there's no levers in your office where you say, pull the technology lever and then all of that changes. It's an organization made of humans with culture and politics and all of those things. So how do you go about trying to like make space for people to embrace things that are new from an organizational level?
Yeah, I think you have to be really intentional about it. And we recently attended the Alliance for Innovation and Transformation conference, and that was the talk. Like, how do you create a community of practice or a group of individuals that can stay in front of these things and have the critical conversations that need to happen on an ongoing basis so that we can formally and informally have a mechanism by which we share information and get information back out to individuals, have it feed our strategic plan, our budgeting priorities, all of those things at the very top. So we're looking forward to doing that here, and we're creating what we're calling the WIN Coalition, the what is next. We love it because it's a statement and a question.
Yeah.
What is next? What is next?
Yeah.
Right? And so we're super excited about that and just bringing people together and see where that goes.
And so, like, we led right into that. So the WIN Coalition, so community of practice is a great way to talk about it. In our work of thinking and talking about what it could be and how it could be effective, I love the adoption of that, community of practice, which is something that educators know, right? That's a solidified idea to say that we can apply those same principles about creating communities of practice around pedagogy to technology integration and the teaching and learning strategies that go along with it was awesome. And the other conversation we've had about it is not to borrow the George W. Bush phrase, but the coalition of the willing. And that is the people in the institution who they're not being assigned to do this. They've raised their hand to say, I want to be part of this group that moves things forward. So from both of those sides, thinking about it, and I guess I'm asking actually for the answer to a test that's coming up in the future, but what would you love to see come out of that WIN Coalition in the next 6 months, 12 months, or something like that?
I'd like to see guidance that people are connecting the dots between signals out there that might really impact the way we do what we do here at the institution, every facet of it. And so I think a lot of that will be technology oriented, but there might be other things too, curveballs that come in, but just some guidance. What are people seeing? What does that mean? I mean, I think the thing about academe, which draws me and probably draws you too, is this idea that people can come together and share what they know and build on each other's expertise and knowledge to create something new. And I really appreciate the coalition of the willing, as you described, because that's what makes it exciting, right? Yeah. Like, you get to be curious and ask those questions that I've never thought of it that way, or I really think I want to explore that more. And what does that mean? And how does that apply? And so I really appreciate that we're bringing people together to have those kinds of conversations that hopefully will energize and invigorate them, but also energize and invigorate the college, and then also get our students excited about learning.
Yeah, I I love the approach because the conversations around this sound a lot like it's some of those things, which is, what is that signal? What does it mean? And when we describe it like there's a lot of we don't know, or we can describe it using questions. There's not a lot of answers. And it can feel so daunting to get from questions to that first bullet point of that's a statement or an action. And so by giving that to a team that, one, is volunteering, two, it crosses the college, both staff and faculty, different areas, right? This thing is not full of IT people and computer science people. It's got faculty from all facets, and that sort of thing, I think, is a great way of going about doing it. And so leaving space for people to ask the questions and then work on, we don't have to have the whole answer, but what's the first part of it, I'm really looking forward to it, is what I'm saying.
And for the individuals engaged in that, just think about the learning and growth that's happening in them, right? That's how we learn and grow and develop ourselves.
Yeah.
And so it's super exciting just to see what comes out of it and where it goes. And it's going to be organic. It'll go where it goes. Yeah. And we're going to be good with that.
But so, all right, then let's go. It takes a little bravery to allow that to happen, right? Which is things that are organic, or to say it goes where it goes, means that sometimes pen on paper ROI becomes a challenge to talk about in some of those things. So how do you balance parts of a college that need to be really concrete and laid out and have those sorts of trade-offs in, and making the space for things that might, that are abstract, what I'm saying? They might fall on their face a couple of times before they take off.
Yeah, I think you have to create a culture where it's okay to fail, where risk is seen as a positive thing. There's no gain without risk, right? I mean, college athlete here, competitive, you gotta risk to gain. And so we are a college that really sits on the edge of what's next and what's new. And I really appreciate and like that about our organization. I think it's a fun place to work. I think people are drawn to that. Certain types of people are drawn to that kind of climate and culture. And it just helps to keep us relevant and viable, and also make it a place where students want to be and learn and grow. So I don't know how you can not be a risk taker and be in education, but I suppose that's possible.
Yeah, so let's dive into that, because there are certainly places where, and this is from just the colleagues that I know and the schools and the different experiences that people have, where there is far the value of process and command and control tends to rule, where you can feel, or they will describe what comes across as sort of a resistance of change because of comfort and predictability, and those things are seen as because those things are seen as stable. So stable as predictable is reliable, and that is kind of the hallmark of the old red brick, higher education institute. The Oxford's been there since the Mayans, and it is doing the same thing, versus a place like us where, we're a rural community. We're technically a rural community college in Arizona, and no one would blame Yavapai College for saying, look, we're a rural community college. We need to stay in our lane. We need to do the things that people expect of us and just do those things. And we don't do that. We very specifically don't do that. So
intentionally don't do that.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So when I came to the college, I had a faculty member and the consultant that was doing the hiring process tell me that Yavapai College was a sleepy little college in the pines, in the high desert in Arizona. And to some extent that was true. There was a lot of tradition, a lot of the way we've always done it. And not really, kind of insular, not really involved on the state scene or the national scene, although we had all the potential in the world. We just weren't. And so I think that's been kind of a shift that people either really embrace or really hate about the place. And so I think it does play into what you were saying, the consistency, the tradition, all of those things that are hallmarks of, the elite university are just not part of the fabric anymore here.
Yeah.
And there's folks that honestly became uncomfortable with that and decided maybe this isn't the place for me. But I think we've attracted a whole new set of individuals who say, wow, this is fun, this is energizing, this is a great place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I agree in that no one here can deny kind of that marked shift of, I think before, so before you came, there were places in the college that could operate that way. And we've always, not to brag, but we've always been, the thing we say is our goal is to punch above our weight class, right? A student at Yavapai College should have the same technology experience they would have at UCLA or ASU. And it's our job to figure out how to do that in our realm, and being connected to colleagues, stealing and borrowing ideas, and knowing, like, not reinventing the wheel's been something in some of the IT and the AV culture for a while, but now to see that, like, that used to be a little foreign, and now it's far more accepted that, like, yes, that is how we go about solving problems. We are going to go to AFIT as a team and collaborate with other colleges and move things forward has been really exciting. So again, I'm just like, I monologue every once in a while. I'm sorry about that, but you'll see people who listen to the show they've heard me say those things over and over and over. But that idea that our job is to push things forward and bring the best that we can for our students. So going back to then being a president, how do you try to keep 500 and some people's thoughts on students every day when what comes across their desk may be an audit compliance thing, or they're a CISO in the background, right? They're talking about other things, a network administrator, or even in other areas, a landscaper or something like that, and point people to students as part of their primary process.
I think it's just keeping that thought in the forefront of everyone. I mean, I have to remind myself, this is about students. This is about students. Sometimes we get bogged down in process or policy or whatever it is, and we have to take a step back and say, really, this is not for the convenience of the faculty or the staff. It's for the convenience of the student. And if a student built this process, what would it look like? If a student built this facility, what would it look like? If the student designed the pathways on the college campus, what would it look like? And so trying to keep the student at the forefront, because they are the reason why we're here. We exist to serve them in the end. It is a challenge. One of the things that I've come to say every once in a while to my people, and I will admit I've probably said, even using your name in the past sometimes, which is I'll tell people, especially if we're working on something and somebody says, hey, we need to do X, and especially in IT, if it's like, this is the policy X, Y, and Z, and somebody questions, or they're nervous to question it, I'll remind, well, just keep in mind, like, while on the org chart, you don't work for me, you work for the students here. So let's talk it through from that angle. And every once in a while, those things will come up where people are like, well, Dr. Rhine, X, Y, and Z. And every once in a while I have to go, I know, but we work for the students, and our job is to keep that in mind and keep that going. And that's what, the people would want us to do. And so when you marry that with that idea of like a place where it's kind of okay to fail and take risk, I feel like people who are able to embrace that are places where it is like are able to do new things and move things forward. So, yeah. And you had mentioned that it's usually the technology folks that are on the forefront of all things of change, right? They're the ones usually pushing that at an institution, and that rang true to me. Yeah. I've seen that every place I've ever been. The most creative and frankly, some of the most intelligent folks are in that area, and they just think differently. Their minds are forward thinking, I think, just built that way. And so they're always looking at what is next and how that is going to impact the next thing and how's that connected to the other thing. And so they just see the world in a different way. And I think that that's really at the heart of someone who's innovative and someone who's going to bring new life to a place and keep it alive and growing. And so again, we want that sense to be with everyone, not just our technology people, but of course they're going to be in the middle of that here.
So what I heard you say is that all college presidents agree that the technology people and their staff are the most important people who work at the college. Did I get that right?
Some of the most important.
There you go. You can.
They're critical.
She said it. There
They're
you
critical.
go. That's
Yeah.
good. Well, I appreciate that, and it's. I will say that even in circles of technology work, like both of those things exist, and there is a like, for instance, if you're a network administrator, like your goal is to get every packet delivered every day on the thing, right? And there are places for people in that really thrive on that. But to then have many roles where there are people who we're going to look forward, especially when you talk about classroom and space design, right?
Yes.
Like we're not trying to build the same thing we did before because it's tried and true and it's easy and it's comfortable. We want to find the opportunities to continue to push. I don't think we've done a good job on a new classroom design unless we've gotten some complaints about it. Because, you know what I'm saying, if everyone loves it on day one, we have not, moved things forward enough. So on that front, we're in the first of two facilities we're putting together that are named the Center for Learning and Innovation at Yavapai College. So what was the genesis of what has become two, pretty major capital projects and paradigm-changing projects for our college?
Yeah, so when I came on board, we embarked on a college-wide facilities master plan, and I asked to look at the previous ones, and usually they last about a decade, and you project over the next 10 years, we're going to build these projects or build these buildings or renovate the space or whatever. And when I looked back, the library had consistently been in the plan, but never completed.
Yeah.
Because what happens in that decade is priorities change, new things come about, costs go up, things just change. And so the plan gets modified as you go along. And what ended up happening is the library was relegated to the floor of like, not this year, we'll put it on the plan next year. And so it was carried over decade after decade. And we still had a library while wonderful folks work in our library and we're doing a bang-up job. It was a model from the 50s. And so we needed to look at what did a modern library look like and what is a library today and how do students get their information and where is the content that students are searching for and need, and how do we get information to students in the best way? And that led to this idea of creating a space that was student-centric. Again, it needed to be a place where students would gravitate and students would thrive, and what technology and tools needed to be in that space for students to be able to access information and knowledge, and for faculty and staff to create content and all of those things. So we talked about, instructional designers and how do we bring that in? How do we bring in the technology piece in a big way? How do we bring in all this new immersive learning and virtual reality and now AI? And how do we modernize a space and have it be kind of multifaceted in what we were trying to accomplish there? And so I think the Centers for Learning Innovation really captured that. And we just opened the one here in the Verde Valley on the Clarkdale campus, and students are filling the spaces already. Super excited to see that energy in the space and students just taking to it like ducks to water, and super excited about replicating this out in the Prescott area.
I agree. Yeah, it's fun because, like, even today we were going to come record here, and And part of it was like, we're going to get the president as the first podcast recorded in the new studio. Students beat us to that. They've been in here all the time. They're like, we just want you to know there's students in there recording right now, but they said they were going to be done. I'm like, do not push a student out on our behalf. That part has been really exciting, especially when you get to see like, we think this could work. We think there's a thing that we have the input, but also to see like, this is something I'm passionate about. And I'm not so old that young people aren't also passionate about it. There's something so rewarding in seeing that thing that like was conversations you were having years ago. Now, those students were in middle school then, and now they're students on our campus and they're using it.
And it's evidence that we got it right.
Yeah, agreed. Well, taking big swings and big risks comes with things, and messing with space, messing with the idea of pushing paradigms and all that is a thing, right? But it takes I just think that I'm proud to work somewhere where that we embrace doing that. So
yes.
I appreciate that. You can see it's my boss's boss. I've spent half this episode being like, you're the best, and thank you, Dr. Rhine. It's good. Okay, so the half hour goes very quickly because that's crazy. But I wanted to close this first episode with one question, which is, we are fortunate enough, or I am fortunate enough to be at a place both by size and by culture that I can know and interact with the president of my college. Mm-hmm. And lots of my colleagues aren't, either by size or access or feasibility or culture or other reasons. So now, speaking on behalf of all college presidents, you're okay doing that, right?
I'm sure. Of course.
What would you say to people who are, working in IT or trying to think and move their institutions forward from the perspective of a college president?
I think I would want all technology folks that work at colleges to hear is that as a president, I see you. And I understand that you are the backbone and infrastructure of all that operates at our institution. Mm-hmm. And because you do it so well, you become invisible. Yeah. And so the appreciation and the accolades that you deserve don't come to you. You get attention when things don't work, mm-hmm. right? You get attention when the system goes down, the 0.1% of the time, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would say we appreciate you. I know my presidential colleagues all see you and know how critical you are, but we don't give you nearly the praise and accolades that you deserve.
Well, thank you for that. That's awesome, because that's people who work in technology, we all kind of know that, and to know and often take pride in, if you really noticed what we've done, we're doing it a little wrong, right? It works best when our work disappears.
Yes. And
teaching and learning moves forward, but everyone being
takes it
seen.
for granted, right?
What's that?
We take it for granted.
Well, yeah, but to have people say, yeah, like, we know you are a known unknown. We may not know everything that it took to get it done, but we know that it did get it done. I appreciate it. Thank you for that message.
You're welcome.
All right. And thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to the AV IT Amplifier. Tune in next week for more with today's guest. It'll be great, or your money back. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.